So I didn't intend on making this video. Someone had asked me actually, hey, Beardson, are you going to make a video on this game? Because I had posted that I was playing it, and I'm like, no, why? I mean, everybody under the sun has made a video about this game, right? What do I have really to offer to the discussion or the discourse surrounding this game? You know, this game has been dissected, taken apart, analyzed, put back together till the end of time, no pun intended, and I don't really plan on going into who made the game, why they made the game, how they made the game, or anything like that. But it's been 2 days since I've beaten the game, and I can't stop thinking about Chrono Trigger. I've put this game off for a long time because the hype around this game is so massive. I mean, when you hear the name Chrono Trigger, it's often followed up by the greatest game of all time. And what game could possibly live up to that expectation, you know? All I ever hear about Chrono Trigger how is it's just perfect in every way, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it's flawless, and it's timeless, and it's an all-time classic. And I've known this for a long time, but I've always kind of put the game off because I've tried playing it before when I was a kid, and I just couldn't really get into it, you know? And maybe we should take a step back a little bit because, I've sort of fallen out of love with JRPGs in general for a very, very long time. I mean, sure, I've played like the new Persona games, and like they're fine. They're all right. I don't love them, but they are fun, and I had a decent time with them because they, changed up the formula a little bit. But in terms of like going back and playing through JRPGs, I've tried it, man. I've tried it over and over and over again, and I don't know if it's just because I'm getting old and I just don't have the time to sink into some 40-hour, 50-hour long JRPG. But I just haven't really loved the genre in a long time. And I used to really love it. It used to be my absolute favorite genre out of them all, you know? I remember very vividly like getting my PlayStation and just going through games and going over to a buddy of mine's house, and he's playing this game, and it looked incredible, you know? I mean, like, fancy CG movies are playing, and it's like turn-based combat, just like Pokemon, which I played a lot. And the characters are weird looking, and the world is odd and bizarre and like futuristic. And I'm like, man, what game are you playing? And he said, oh, it's Final Fantasy VIII. And that was it. That was all I needed to hear to send me down this path. And, ever since then, I remember asking for Final Fantasy 7 and 8 for Christmas, and I got them both, and I played through them both, and it was awesome. And then I started to branch out a little bit and started to play like the Final Fantasy Anthology, which I actually never played, but I'm going to, okay? I know everyone's been yelling at me, you gotta play Final Fantasy 6. Okay, we're getting to that, but I would play games like Legend of Dragoon, which was, I think, an underrated classic for the system. And, so many more. And then eventually I actually played Chrono Cross, not knowing that it was the sequel to another game. I had no clue. And I loved it. I haven't played it since its release, and I'm probably going to go back and replay it again. But I remember just being so enthralled and so immersed in this world, and the plot twist with the cat guy, and I remember fighting the end boss, and you happen to cast the magic colors in a certain order to like make a rainbow to get the true ending of the game, and it was just awesome. I love this genre, and I've been playing them ever since. But I don't know, maybe it's just because I'm getting old. I just haven't really felt immersed in these. I feel like they haven't been as good. I mean, there's obviously been like some rare exceptions. Games like I think Lost Odyssey is really good, and of course like the new Persona games I think are really good too. But I don't know, man. I haven't been able to really sink my teeth into one of these games for a long time, and I didn't even really intend on playing Chrono Trigger at all. I just fired it up because I had gotten this new Sony Trinitron television, and I really wanted to see what pixel-based games would look like on it. And I was like, well, I mean, I'm sure Chrono Trigger would probably look really good. I remember the graphics of that game being really good, and so I fired it up and I started playing it a little bit, and then I kept playing it, and then I kept playing it, and kept playing it, and kept playing it. Soon enough, it was like I'd turn the game off, and I'm just like, man, I wish I was just playing Chrono Trigger again. And I haven't felt that way about any video game in a long time, let alone a JRPG, but here we are. And so I want to talk a little bit about Chrono Trigger, if you guys don't mind, because I think this is one of the times that I think rarely a game lives up to the hype. It is a masterpiece, and I can't believe I've waited this long to play it. I think the thing that I like most about Chrono Trigger, and there's a lot to like about the game, but the one thing that I really like that I didn't think that I would like at all is the time travel mechanic. Usually when I hear time travel in almost any media nowadays, I just sort of roll my eyes. It's such a trope. It's very, I don't know, lame to me. Like, nothing's ever really done that's like creative with it. It's always the same idea, like, oh, it's the butterfly effect, you know, like, I think it's very tired and played out, and there's not a whole lot of creativity with it. And so that was like the aspect of this game that I was looking forward to probably the least, and it ended up being probably one of my favorite video game mechanics ever, because it allowed you to see your character and your actions shape the world around you in a pretty meaningful way too. Like, one of my favorite things in this game is very simple. Like, it's like one little part of a side quest, but it's so cool to me. So you have to get this sunstone, and part of it is you have to leave it in the past and let it sit in the sun for like 100,000 years or 10,000 years or something. And so you go back into the past, you put the stone there, the moonstone there, to turn it into the sunstone, and then you travel to the future and you're like, oh, it's gone. Somebody stole it. Well, where is this thing? So you travel through time and you find it, the last place that it was seen, and you track it down to this mayor. And this mayor, you walk into his house, his whole family hates him. This guy's a jerk, you know? Everybody hates him. He's like selfish, and he just wants to collect money. And you go and talk to him, and like, hey man, I know you've got my sunstone, and your house is like twinkling from space. I can see it. He's like, well, I'm not giving it up. This is mine. Okay. So then you travel back into the past, and you go to his house, and his mom is there, or his great-grandmother or something. And you talk to her, and she's like, man, I really want some beef jerky. You're like, well, I happen to have some beef jerky. You want it? She's like, yeah. Well, how much you want for it? You're like, just take it on the house. She's like, really? It's like, wow, that's so generous. Thank you. I've never experienced such generosity before. Wow, you know what? I'm going to teach my kids to be just as generous as you. So then you leave the house, you travel to the future, and guess what? This guy is like, oh, you want the sunstone? Here, take it. Take anything you want. I'm super generous. And his family loves him, and really his wife's complaining that he's too generous now. But like, what a crazy little part of a side quest. But I love it, because I love games where your choices make a difference, and your choices shape the world around you. And there's another one that I really enjoy too, where you're in the past and you talk to this woman and she's like, I was given this seed, like, what should I do with it? And you have an option. You can tell her to, just burn it, who cares? Or you can tell her to, like, plant it. And then you travel to the future, and there's a woman there in the middle of a desert, and she's like, hey, I got this seed, and I'm going to plant it and make a forest, but there's all these monsters, and I can't do anything. You're like, don't worry about it. I'll go take care of the monsters. So you go, you fight the monsters, you come back. She's like, great. Man, I wish I could really spend the time, to fix this forest. And you have a robot in your party. If you have the robot in your party, he's like, I'll stick around. I'll help you build the forest. I don't age, so I'm a robot, so I'll do it. So you drop him off, and you see him out there in the fields. He's plowing the dirt. You travel to the future now, and where there was once this like desolate desert, there's a great forest there, and there's a church or a shrine there. And you go to the shrine. There's nuns there, and they're like, this is the shrine for Layla and her forest. And then you go up to the front, and there's Robo. He's seen better days for sure, but there he is. And you grab Luca, and she fixes him up just good as new, and you guys have a little campfire and just enjoy the lush forest that you built. I love when games do this, Not everything has to be some like grand moral choice where you can be good or you can be evil, And obviously Chrono Trigger doesn't really do anything like that necessarily. I mean, a little bit here and there, but nothing to really like impact the story of the game. But it does, you can impact the world if you choose to go out of your way to help people, if you choose to go out of your way to make righteous decisions. You can make the world in this game a better place. And I love that. I love seeing my actions take fruit in the world around me. And not enough games do that. And I feel like I'm getting like way ahead of myself, but that's sort of the beauty of this game. And that's why I think it stuck with me for so long. Or not so long, 2 days, but you know what I mean? In this disposable culture, 2 days is a very long time. And I just couldn't believe that this game was made in 1994. And it is more like intricate and in-depth than a lot of JRPGs that I've played since then, And I've played a lot. I couldn't believe how simple the story is to this game. I mean, it opens up and you're just a young boy who's asleep and his mom wakes him up, just like almost every JRPG known to man. And there's a carnival in town, and you go to the carnival, and you meet a girl, and, blah, blah, blah. Then she gets sucked into the past due to this mysterious amulet, and you have to go save her, Pretty standard story stuff. But where it goes from there is so much more than that. Because it's really not about the story necessarily, but it is about what you can do in the world, and where you go and the people that you meet and what you can change in the past can affect the present. And I love the combat too. I mean, the combat just feels so refreshing to me. I remember playing through the end of the game, in the last dungeon, and I'm like pretty overpowered. I was honestly getting kind of bored because I'm just like one-shotting everything. And it's not that I grinded or power leveled my characters in any way, because you don't have to do that at all in this game, which is why it's so like impeccably paced. But I just happened to do a lot of side quests and had like ultimate weapons for all my characters and ultimate armor for all my characters, so it was kind of like a cakewalk. And then I get to one of the final bosses of this dungeon, and all of a sudden I'm getting wrecked, dude. Wrecked. Like, I have no idea. Like, I was like, man, the difficulty spike on this is insane. Like, what is going on? But it turns out it's not a difficulty spike. I'm just playing the boss battle wrong. Because the boss battles aren't really like skill checks like in most JRPGs, where it's just like hit the boss enough numbers, make the numbers go down and you win. It's like, it's more of a puzzle, really. It's like you have to figure out exactly what the mechanics are of the boss and how to defeat it. It's like, it doesn't, obviously your numbers and your skills and your levels will help to a certain degree, but what's really important is you using your brain, figuring out how to overcome this obstacle and succeeding. And I love when games do that. I love that so much. And the final boss of this game, and I know the game's old, but I don't want to like do any spoilers or have any super spoilery footage in the game, because if you haven't played this game, I want you to experience it yourself. But the final boss of this game, man, I had never been so locked in a long time, you know, almost like I felt like I was playing like Bloodborne again, you know. I'm fighting this boss and I'm struggling. Like I'm like, man, how do I beat this thing? I've got total gamer stance where I'm like lean forward, elbows on the knees, you know, locked in. The boss music is blaring. I've got the TV cranked up, you know. I'm pretty sure that if I like a minute longer and I would have been like dripping sweat because of how intense this fight was and how desperate I was to overcome this obstacle. And I felt like it was exhilarating, you know? Like, these are the moments why I play video games, is to feel and to chase this feeling, you know? Where I am totally, like, centered and focused on this task ahead of me. It feels almost insurmountable. And yet I can overcome it through sheer willpower and creativity, ingenuity, and skill. And I did it. And man, like I never felt so happy, you know, in such a long time playing a game where I felt like I really accomplished something. I really overcame the odds to defeat this boss and to beat this game. And it felt fantastic, man. And I don't get that feeling enough from games anymore. And I'm not trying to make this like a video about me complaining about modern games, because that's pretty much every other video on this channel. But what a rush that was, beating Chrono Trigger. And I haven't even experienced all the endings. I've only gotten maybe a couple of the really easy ones that you can get sort of right off the bat in New Game Plus. But I want to go back and do more of them, because honestly, I don't want to leave this world. You know, I love this world. I love these characters. I didn't even think I would care this much about these characters in this game, to be honest with you. I'm playing the game and I run across this funny little frog guy, and I'm like, okay, this is like a joke character, right? But like, he's a frog. That's cool. He's got like an awesome sword and he's like a knight. All right, I'm going to put him in my party. Like, this guy, I'm just making the decision. This guy's in my party now, because he looks cool. And I ended up doing a side quest, and it was one of the most like heartfelt things in the whole game. I'm like, this, like, what I thought was going to be this joke character ended up being the most like fleshed out and like complex and tragic characters in the whole game. And his side quest was awesome. And I you know, if I didn't do it, I never would have experienced this like awesome sort of characterization, this awesome scene. But I loved it, man. And like, if I was like a big pussy, I probably would have cried, to be honest with you. But I don't cry ever about anything. But I was, dude, I could feel it. I was like, dang, I'm getting a little choked up here. This is awesome. And this is for like a 2D sprite game, you know, like that came out in 1994. But it was awesome. All of the characters have like really great little side stories to experience that really gives them proper motivation and proper person, you know, like they're real people. They make sense to me. And I love the artwork too, of course. I mean, it's Akira Toriyama. I love his art style. Huge Dragon Ball Z fan since I was a wee little lad. And, you know, it's just great. The art style is fantastic. But so much about this game is absolutely amazing. The pacing of it is great. I mean, you could beat the game in 15 hours if you want to. Although I'd recommend, again, going and doing all the side quests and trying to complete everything. But it doesn't have that like JRPG bloat that I feel like a lot of these games have. You know, it is trimmed down to just pure raw beef. You know, like you're not getting any fat on this steak. It is lean, but in the best possible ways. All the good stuff is left here. And another thing that I really like about the game is that I think a lot of JRPGs, they just sort of feel like these amusement park rides, right? Where, you know, of course there's always like stuff to do, like side quests and things like that in almost every JRPG, but they feel like very unnecessary and they don't really help advance the story in any meaningful way for the most part. It's like, okay, this is how you get your ultimate weapon, or this is how you get this summon, or this item, or this armor, or, you know, whatever. And you know, at the end of the day, it just makes your gameplay a little bit easier. But other than that, the main story doesn't really change. You experience this story for better or for worse. You know, some people really like that experience, and I do, you know, from time to time. But it gets old after a while, and that's the whole genre. But not Chrono Trigger. Chrono Trigger, you get to sort of kind of forge your own tale throughout this world, and you can choose even when you want to beat the game, because you can beat the game at almost any time. Like after 2 or 3 hours into the game, you get to choose when you want to beat the game. You know, granted, you know, you're probably gonna have a hard time trying to beat the final boss at like level 10, but it's, I guess, technically possible. You can go fight him, and if you lose, you know, you lose. But there's so many different ways to beat this game. There's like 12, 13 different endings, I think. And these aren't like little like joke endings all the time either. I mean, these are just like different outcomes based on your choices and what you choose to do in the game. And I think that's awesome. And there's, again, New Game Plus for you to go back through and do all that. And again, you get to choose like what side quests you want to do. Even if you choose to help certain people or not, they'll show up in your ending. Just a fantastic game. It's just excellently paced. I mean, the music is just excellent. I don't even need to talk about it. You guys know it's amazing. And I love this game, man. I can't believe that I've been sleeping on this game for so long. And I loved it. I loved every bit of it. And I'm probably going to play through it again, to be honest with you, because I just had so much fun playing it. And everything about it was just perfect. Like I get it now. I get the hype, and it definitely lived up to the hype. And I think, you know, in a way, like, not to be like too corny about this, but it's like very interesting to me that it took a game about time travel to sort of like revive this love for JRPGs that I had when I was like a 12-year-old boy, you know? Because now, like, I feel motivated. Like, now I think it's finally time for me to play Final Fantasy VI after everyone's... I've known that I need to play. Everyone's like, you gotta play Final Fantasy VI. I was like, I know, dude, but, like, But, like, now I want to play the game. I'm actually probably gonna start it sometime this week. And I may end up doing a review about that one, too. Who knows? But I'm in love with JRPGs again, which is something that I didn't think I would say ever again, and I owe it all to Chrono Trigger. So I wanted to do a little bit of a video about this game, even though a million people have talked about this game way more in depth than I am. I mean, this video is gonna be fairly short, but man, I just had to talk about it because I loved it. I loved every bit of it. And if you haven't played it, play it. It's worth it. It's one of the best games ever made. I get it now. I totally get it. And I regret not playing it sooner.